Get started.
Okay. Welcome to the Shift Your Life podcast. I'm Dr. Tracy Latz.
And I'm Dr. Marion Ross.
And today we have the legendary master of voice alchemist, and angel whisperer, Stewart Pearce. Welcome, Stewart. It's wonderful to have you here. He is head of voice at the Webber Douglas Academy, has been in London from 1980 to 1997, and you pioneered the Shakespeare's Globe Theatre between 1997 to 2010. And you've coached many luminaries, including presidential hopeful Marianne Williamson, Margaret Thatcher, and of course, Diana, Princess of Wales. We had the opportunity to go with Stewart on one of his annual treks to Egypt for his resurrection retreat or journey there. And it was amazing, truly amazing. Stewart, thank you for being here, and tell us a little bit about your work. We know about it. We want everyone to know about it.
I'm sorry, my darling, you suddenly cut out there, but so I missed part of what you were saying. Tell you about
the resurrection retreat.
About the retreat, the resurrection retreat.
Yes.
Oh, wow. Well, I've been going to Egypt for nigh on 50 years and was steeped in the mysteries from the word go because of a very remarkable person that literally walked out of the desert towards me when I first went on a journey to Egypt. And over the years, I'd become so enamored of the ancient mysteries, and particularly certain dynasties that arise out of the great pantheon of the pharaohs and the queens, that in correspondence with so many different shifts in my own spiritual process and so forth and so forth, I was asked by Spirit, by the angels of Atlantis who work through me, if I would create a series of retreats, and that I've done over the last 12 or 13 years. So as you were saying, I either go annually, either once or biannually to Egypt. The journey is called the Resurrection Retreat because literally we use the great temples of Egypt to find ways of being able to release the negativity, to release the shadow within our bodies, and thence to acquire the greater light that is literally alive in these sacred geometric soul spots, these astrogeographical vehicles that the temples are. And so I've had hundreds and hundreds of people come with me to these very remarkable temples. And there is the most amazing time that we have. As soon as people arrive, because of the joint intention of being able to engage on a very specific level through love, through joy. But what I find is that people, when they come, automatically move into a really beautiful conciliatory energy where there's a great deal of co-creativity and a great deal of fun, deep sharing as we go on our journey. And I think that's what happened with the two of you as well, isn't it? That we shared on a very deep level.
It was truly amazing and transformative for so many people on that journey, including us. It helps people really reconnect with their own souls and with the light that is within them. And what a powerful time to be doing this. You've been doing it for quite a while, but truly today there's such a need for everyone to transform and shift. And for that, we honor that work. It was so powerful with the journeys into the temples, taken deeper and deeper, using sound to connect with all that is and to connect with one another and to feel part of something much bigger than our own personal egos and journeys. And there's so many people searching right now that need that. And we need it not only personally for relationships, but for leaders in the world. And I love that you help people with personal journeys for just the everyman, every woman out there. And yet you also coach and work with dignitaries and people in media and people in politics to really help people get out of this shadow, this fear, this limiting aspect.
Mm. Yes, thank you for reminding me, because it's interesting, isn't it, how the temples are acoustically tuned to the reverberation of the human note, so to speak, or the variety of notes that we humans can produce when we are in a state of awe and when we are in a state of wonder. When we're there in reverence and respect, we emit sounds from our bodies. So as you were saying, you know, in each temple we did a sonic ritual, and where we chanted, and in each temple there is this extraordinary bathroom effect, isn't there, where, you know, how when we were kids, or even today, if you sing in the bathroom, it always encourages you to make more sound because of its resonance. And also, I believe, because the water molecule is one of the great vehicles for sound. As we all know, when we were children, we went under the bathwater and suddenly found ourselves in these great sonic environments, just as today we can listen to whale or dolphin song. So yes, by sounding our note, we each have an individual note within these temples. It seems that they are preconceived, that the masonry and the organization of the elements within these sacred ruins, because many of them are ruinous, but what's also extraordinary, I hope you would agree, is that every time we go into the temples, we feel the magic almost leaking from the stonework, as well as knowing that they're astrogeographical alignments, so they have a very powerful effect through the pranic cord of our bodies. And then watching people go through this level of revelation and edification and transformation is just remarkable. You know, so when we see how people arrive on the retreat, and then when they leave, they're in these incandescent states of purely transcendental energy. It's always very challenging. I don't know how you found it, but I had a lot of emails from the people that joined us in December of last year, 2018, that when they came back to their lives in the United States or Australasia or the United Kingdom, other parts of Europe, that they found it very difficult to shift, and it took at least a month or 6 weeks for their energies to accommodate, even though the terrains were very familiar. So I find that very interesting, you know, that there's evidently an opportunity in Egypt to really stoke up ourselves, that we begin to see the possibility of what it is to live a higher vibrational frequency, even in daily life.
It's true, because you don't know what you don't know. And once you're living in an elevated state of vibration, you always want to stay there or find a way back there, which is difficult to do as soon as you get to the airport.
Yeah.
Unless you know how to.
Yeah.
To teach people.
Well, you know,
that.
Once
you know,
you transform, no one around you has done that. So
yeah.
you get back home and you have had this powerful experience, and you suddenly become aware of where you want to transform relationships, or your approach to your work, or your approach to life, and what media you want to expose yourself to, or how you want to now voice that keynote within you that you've connected with. And when you do that, you know, when you shift, you sort of shift your contracts energetically that you've made with other people. And because of that, people who resonate more with this new vibration, or your true vibration that you've connected with, now are attracted to you. But people who don't resonate with it sort of will push back on you for you to go back into the old way, or they'll just sort of dissipate out of your life. So it can create what seems like difficulty, but it really is in divine order. It sort of re-evaluates and changes the course of where you are, but hopefully in a way that takes you more on your path of purpose.
I hear you, and I completely cohere. Mm. I love the way that your arms and your hands were dancing as you described that, because there was a wonderful moment where you sort of did that, and it reminded me of the caduceus and how on a deep cellular level, the whole of our DNA is being rearranged by the immensely high frequencies that are emitted by the chambers in which we stand, and some of us worship in terms of kneeling down and so forth. And of course, the final great ritual of being in the king's chamber of the Great Pyramid, where everybody is permitted legitimately to lie down in the great sarcophagus in the way that the pharaohs once would have, as they engaged in that great ritualized process that they called ossarification, which in the West we have an understanding of through Kundalini arousal. Yeah, so each time I go, it's such an honor that I can go twice a year and remarkable people from all over the world come and join me and behave mostly, which is nice. So we're able to really able to commingle and become one with one another. And, although there's this recognition of our essential diversity as human, as Homo sapien, there is this other quality of energy that we're, I believe, evoking in our lives at this time, of the sort of mutual consanguinity, that we begin to see, oh, there's another human being out there, and that they're not in defense or in offense of me or whatever I stand for, but there we are coming together in this lovely co-creative communion. And if we can keep living the elements of love and joy, the freedoms that those two essential pathways bring in our feeling propensities, then it seems to me that we can always keep on these high frequencies, enabling the natural purpose of our lives to come forth, that we are here to optimize our creativity full of love and joy, that we're here to live the greatest vision of self. And that if we're striving to identify, well, how can I do this, and not compromise in relation to the substantial relationships that we have that are very meaningful in our lives, whether it be with significant other or in our professional processes, that we do indeed, the caduceus, the DNA energy opens around the pranic cord in our bodies. And as a result of that, we become better people, we become more mature people. And it's easier to make choices, isn't it? So as you were saying, the old literally just folds away, it drops away, it is resolved, it is dissolved. And therefore we can really move towards what our divine purpose is, what our divine blueprint is. And that's why the angels asked me to call the journey resurrection, so that we could die to our old selves and be reborn or resurrected to our divine blueprint. Always making the highest choice.
Such a powerful experience that it all culminates in, as you were saying, in the sarcophagus in the Great Pyramid. Amazing.
It was amazing. Just an added feature, which is another incredible experience, being in the temples during the emerging sun bursting through. There's so many visceral experiences, so many intellectual. It's just it's a perfect time of year to go.
In December, yeah. And of course,
you always have a group that is amazing, and it's it becomes a spiritual family.
It is. We become en famille. And of course, the greatest revelation is December the 21st. So the retreat is balanced between December the 12th and the 22nd, very purposefully. So it embraces 2 days when in Islam there is sacred holiness, which is the Friday, of course. As with, of course, for the Christians, it's Sunday. But then we move into the Shabbat with Judaism. However, December the 21st is the winter solstice, and we get up at the crack of dawn in darkness and journey to, which is 10 minutes drive, to the great temple of Karnak, the largest temple in creation anywhere in the world. And there we're able to stand and see the dawn ceremony of the sun rising at a particular angle that it burns into the Holy of Holies, which is made of red granite. So literally it becomes God's oven on earth for about 3 minutes while the sun hovers there. So God walks amongst us for, what, 7 minutes? And then once more goes back into the heavens. It's the most amazing experience. I will never forget the first time I attended. I think that when the three of us were there with the group, I think this was the 7th or 8th occasion that we'd been. I remember being invited by the governor of Luxor. Oh, Mr. Pia, you must come to temple. Come to temple for winter solstice. And I thought, what's he talking about? And then, of course, we experienced it. And I remember feeling that we were surrounded by thousands of priests, and they were skilled in this military precision, and that there were a series of sacred passes that they used when the sun, almost like an arm choreography, rather like Tai Chi or Qigong. Sacred passes that created an extraordinary whirlwind effect around us, so that we were so moved that most of us were in tears. At 4 o'clock that afternoon, 2 meters from where we were standing, a unique cache was found by French archaeologists that they'd been searching for the last 25 years. And there were 12 pieces of gold statuary that had been hidden in the dirt for possibly 3,500 years. And the head guard of the Temple of Karnak is a friend of ours called Muhammad. And Muhammad told the story of the largest piece was probably about, I don't know how many centimeters it would be, but 2 feet in length, and it was a statue of Ptah, the god of creation, with his blue skull cap and blue face. And when it was taken from the soil, Muhammad said that it had a radiation, an auric radiation around him of at least 40 meters. He then wrapped it in a sack and was told to go and take it to the safe holding place, the secure, not vault by any means, a secure place. And when he entered the place and locked the door behind him, he couldn't resist the temptation of looking at it again. And he opened the sacking. Everything is very improvised and very basic in Egypt. And the aura had reduced, but it was still shining this extraordinary light. He said that it immediately emitted a vibration of energy that healed his sciatic. He had a sciatic problem that had been plaguing him for about 10 or 12 years, and automatically allowed him to live on light for 2 weeks. He didn't sleep for 2 weeks, except for this shimmering presence. Anyway, so there are I have many stories like that, but that was sort of one of the principal features that came out of that first observance of the winter solstice. So we're very lucky that this retreat is spanning that periodicity, so that we can enjoy that. The shortest day of the year, of course, December the 21st, and during the procession of the equinoxes, December the 21st, 2012, we were not just in the Great Pyramid and the Temple of Karnak, we were also in the Temple of Luxor, where we chanted. I remember the police became very anxious and we were nearly arrested. But because we created I had a very large group there, we were about 40 people. We created such a wonderful force that huge things were shifted, not just for ourselves, but also for the temple keepers, a number of whom we knew very well, who are the wisdom keepers that have been there for the last 12 years, and their fathers before them, and their grandfathers before them, and their great-grandfathers before them. And they have all sorts of ravishing stories about the way that they see things emerging from the stone, and how they see, particularly in the middle of the night, they often see ETs arriving in these sacred temples. Remarkable things happening. Yeah, so it's a very exciting time And also highly educative, isn't it? So
Yes, it is.
it feeds the mental body as well as the physical, emotional body to
Sure.
open up
If
more light.
if someone wanted to join you in this journey, how would they contact you? How would they let you know?
Good question. Thank you, darling. Just email me at Stewart, Stewart, at theangelsofatlantis.com. Theangelsofatlantis.com. And if in doubt, just simply go to Stewart Pearce on Facebook or Instagram, and there I am. Oh, Twitter. You know, must get dear twit.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, or go to the www.theangelsofatlantis.com, and there is a temple website for the 12 Angels of Atlantis. And, you know, all of the information is very clearly specified in the toolbar. Yeah.
Stuart, you are an amazing man, and you have connected with angels for years before it was the cool thing to do. And you certainly have done a lot of work with that and your books. I do understand that you have a new book coming out. Tell us
I
about
do, which I'm immensely excited about. Well, it's an interesting story. About 3 years ago, my agent and I had approached a series of publishers about a book that I wanted to write called Angelic Activism, which I felt was a really, really excellent, well, I still feel is an excellent book. But they said very boldly, we don't want any more books about angels. Can't Stewart write something out, you know, which is 30 years ago, they were clamoring for books about angels. But now you walk into Barnes and Noble, of course, you can't get in the door for self-empowerment books about angels. Everybody's writing books about angels. So I winnowed for a moment and then suddenly thought, okay, well, let's write another book. And so over dinner with my agent, I said, well, what shall I write? And she said, well, you worked with Diana. Why don't you write a book about Diana? And I said, no, I'm not writing a book about Diana. I have a sacred relationship with Diana, which is one of absolute discretion. Discretion is the better part of valor. And so our relationship was very clandestine. I asked her if that would be so. I worked with her for the last two and a half years of her life. And I asked for it to be clandestine because she was surrounded by a circus. She was surrounded by many, well, perhaps not many healers at that time. So I'm talking about 95 as she moved into a status of being divorced from Prince Charles. But she had worked with many healers, psychotherapists, etc., alternative practitioners or complementary practitioners. And a number of them had taken their story off to the dailies and made thousands of pounds or thousands of dollars for themselves. So I refused to be part of that. So the relationship that we had was very sacrosanct. But do you know, the more that my agent said, yes, but your book will not be a kiss and tell. It will actually be moving into the divine essence of who she was and the empowerment processes that you took her through so that she could be helped to acquire the level of radiance that she had. And you know, in that moment, something huge happened within my consciousness, where I suddenly saw the whole of the book and realized that the testament of what we had achieved together, you know, what we worked through together, because the process was immensely organic, was there before me. And all I needed to do was to go back to my notes or my journals of 20, 22, 23, 24 years ago, which I did. And I was surprised how much I'd written down, and also the names of some significant people, so that I could see if they were still alive, so that I could interview them. And so that I've written this book called Diana, the Voice of Change, and how she acquired her note, because we each have a note, to help her move into the empowerment necessary for someone of her rank and her status and her influence to be really perceived through the reverberation of her loving intelligence, to really be perceived as the woman that she was, which is this, I believe, this iconic change maker. As we saw more, of course, during those last few years of her life, and then at her death, when we all experienced an immense arousal of Shakti. something very extraordinary took place. And people are still talking about this. So I was able to interview a few of the people that were still around, and people said, when Diana touched me, I felt as though a bolt of electricity went through me, and I still feel that quality of force. It changed my entire life. Henry Kissinger said that when Diana looked at you, she could melt the bones of grown men. And I said, what do you mean by that? And he said, well, all the potentates that she met, there was something extraordinary about what happened in our bodies when she looked with these. She had the most extraordinary blue eyes, these large periwinkle colored eyes. And when he started speaking, he wept, a tear came into his eyes. I was very touched by that, because he has been an extraordinary international leader, a politician of great rank, but also associated with a great deal of darkness. So I was very touched by that. What was interesting about Diana was her role evoked great darkness within the establishment.
Yes.
And of course, that darkness was in denouncement of her as being a superficial, frail, hysterical, overly dramatic young woman, who in truth, she may have had displays of emotionality that were unfortunate, but in truth, she was an empath of extraordinary degree and was trying to find a way of grounding herself in the world whilst playing this remarkable role, and constantly being thrust into the public eye, and being at the beck and the call, to a certain extent, of the paparazzi, who were vile to her. I mean, if she didn't take any notice, if she walked out of a restaurant having had lunch with friends, and there would be paps around, if she didn't take any notice of them, that they would literally accost her with swearing. I mean, they would call her all the names under the sun in this really crude. I was there once where she was called an effing C, I mean, really destructive, so that she would react or respond so that they could get the photographs that they wanted. I mean, really appalling. And the fact that that onslaught was happening every single day wherever she went. Except on occasion, because she loved to be incognito, she would put on a dark wig and spectacles and a Burberry raincoat, and we would go walkies in Kensington Gardens, or once or twice we went to the movies. And nobody knew who she was. It's great fun. Being incognito, but actually, the fun was the fact that it was convincing. Nobody knew who was actually standing next to me. So the book is about her as her rite of passage. It's not a huge book, but the last chapter that particularly comes to my mind is called The Chosen One. And the decision that we made was, well, if she was going to be the queen of everybody's hearts, which seemed to be what people claimed of her, that what we needed to do was to understand what her rite of passage would be as she became consecrated on a sacred level, because on a metaphysical level, because it was obviously she wasn't going to be sitting in the coronation chair. And so what I did was to take the 7 rites of passage, or the 7 initiations that led to the embodiment of what that level of anointing was. So she didn't literally sit in the coronation chair and be anointed by oil in the way that the sovereign is from, in this case, the Archbishop of Canterbury, but was actually anointed by the initiations that she moved through, that were not necessarily, they were metaphysical realities, but we made physical truths. And that seemed to have a tremendous effect on her entire life, where she became much more balanced in the usage of her energies, much more empowered, and therefore was easier, more at ease with the radiation that came through that affected the lives of millions and millions of people. So I've included all of that in the book, believing that that was a template for other extraordinary human beings, particularly so many ladies that are being awakened at this time to the possibility of how they can really live their greatest truth and their most incandescent power, and therefore to bring about change in the world so that we have greater parity between men and women. It is a book essentially for ladies, but I also hope that the men are going to be evoked and edified and educated by it, so that we also cease the lamentation about her passing.
How beautiful to really get in touch with divine female,
Yeah.
and have her help lead us to that, and you being the voice of that for her, since she isn't here to give that voice now. How beautiful.
And why she chose to transition in the way that she transitioned.
Yes.
Which was part of her incarnatory trajectory, but she was also killed, so.
It's a final initiation of sorts. It's,
And it's interesting, that where the accident took place, where effectively she died in this extraordinary tunnel in Paris, once that was where the Temple of Diana stood in Roman times, which was then re-evoked by the Merovingians, who were tribal feudal warlords that lived in that area. And Diana was their patron. So it's very interesting that the Pont d'Alma is the bridge of spirit, and that the feudal warlords that lived there between 300 and 750, 800 AD, that they believed that that was a sacred portal that their warriors would move through and become God's ears and God's eyes on earth, but from heaven. So that's rather interesting, and that's all in connection with the birthright of the Holy Grail. So there's the whole journey is steeped in mysticism. And then we go further into, the Spencer family, Lady Diana Spencer, are one of the most noble households in European aristocracy, infinitely more noble than the Saxe-Coburgs or the present Windsors, as they're known, with great respect for Her Majesty, because I think she's a very remarkable woman. Yes. And has been an icon of the divine feminine for us for so many years, since 1953. So, she and her husband are getting very old, so it's very interesting to see what's going to happen when they make their transition, which is going to be over the next period of time, whatever. I mean, her mother lived until she was about 101. The Queen is now 93, so we have 7 more years.
Interesting times.
Yeah. The arousal of the divine feminine. So yes, so there's a little bit of what my work is all about, and this beautiful book, even though I say it myself, I'm very, very, very pleased that it will be published.
And we thank you for bringing that forward. I know it likely is something sat and weighed on as to whether or not or when to put it out in public. And I think we honor you for honoring her and her journey and helping us go through that portal ourselves to understand metaphysically what it means for all of us. So, and that's also what your journey is about for each person personally in Egypt, and your work with people connecting with their keynotes. And so thank you for helping people shift their lives and being a shift doctor like Marion and I in different ways.
Well, bless you. Thank you for that.
And thank you for your generous gift of time this morning, your afternoon. I know you have another appointment that you need to get to, but it's been a joy.
It's lovely to see you, and I wish you, as we're recording in summertime, I wish you a very, very happy summer, and even greater accomplishments and revelations of your own process. I know it's rich and multidimensional, and so I look forward to when we next meet. I'll be back in the States in September, and I'm hoping to get down to see some friends in Charlottesville. So, you know, why not? Why not step by and see Dr. Tracy?
That would be a great gift. I would love that. It would be fun.
And for Doc Marion, who seems to have disappeared. Are you there,
My
Marion?
connection is unstable.
Your connection.
My internet connection.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It suddenly cut out on you as you said that. My internet. Bless you both. Thank you. It's
Bless you and thank you.
some time. Thank you for the opportunity of meeting all your people and sending you both much love. Namaste, namaste. Mwah. And to all the viewers. Namaste. Bye.
Bye-bye.
We cut it? Can I talk now?
You can talk now. You kept
Can you hear
glitching and glitching and glitching.
Me?
Yeah.
Well,
How about you want to get off of
Didn't
here
say
and we'll
anything.
talk elsewhere?
I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
I hear you. Yes.
Yeah. Now
You're
it just doesn't
glitching.
happen.
You're glitching.
Okay.
Let's get off of here.